Are you a fan of gangster movies and TV shows? If so, then you won't want to miss the brutal true story of Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. Siegel played a significant role in the growth of the Las Vegas Strip, but his criminal career began on the streets of Brooklyn. From armed robberies to murder, Siegel quickly gained a reputation for his fearless and violent nature. Alongside his friend Meyer Lansky, Siegel became a member of the Jewish mob and was a part of the infamous Bugs and Meyer gang. They were responsible for carrying out assassinations for various bootleg gangs in New York and New Jersey. Their actions caught the attention of other mob bosses, including Lucky Luciano, who saw the potential in Siegel. In this video, we will dive deeper into the life of Bugsy Siegel, from his rise to power to his violent demise. Get ready to learn about one of the most notorious gangsters of all time. The growth of the Las Vegas Strip was significantly influenced by American mobster Benjamin Siegel. He shared considerable power with his friend and fellow gangster, Meyer Lansky, within the Jewish mob, the Italian-American Mafia, and the primarily Italian-Jewish National Crime Syndicate. On the evening of June 20th, 1947, an unidentified assailant shot him multiple times in his Beverly Hills home, killing him. This abruptly ended his life. In the Brooklyn borough of New York City, New York, on February 28, 1906, Siegel was born. He was raised in a low-income Ashkenazi Jewish family that had fled from Galicia and what was then Austria-Hungary to the United States. His parents, Jenny and Max Siegel, toiled long and hard for meager pay. He stopped attending school as a teen and joined a gang on Manhattan's Lower East Side, where he primarily committed thefts. He later formed a protection ring with Mossadway, threatening to set pushcart vendors' goods on fire unless they paid him $1. Beginning in his teenage years, Siegel's criminal history quickly grew to include armed robberies and murder. Meyer Lansky, who saw the need for the Jewish boys in their Brooklyn neighborhood to unite in the same way as the Italians and Irish, became a friend of Siegel when he was a teenager. Siegel was the first person Lansky recruited into his gang after using his sharp mind to establish a small gang that concentrated on car theft and gambling. At Lansky's request, Siegel started working as a hitman for the mob while the two engaged in bootlegging in a number of important East Coast cities. The Bugs and Meyer mob was established almost a decade before Murder Incorporated and were responsible for carrying out assassinations for various bootleg gangs in New York and New Jersey. Louis Buckleter and Jake Lansky, a brother of Lansky, were among the members of Siegel's gang, which was involved in robbing rival gangs of their liquor shipments and killing rival gang leaders. Another Bugs and Meyer mob member claimed that Siegel was fearless and saved his friends' lives. Lansky and Siegel represented the Bugs and Meyer mob at the Atlantic City Conference from May 13th to May 16th, 1929, as the larger mob switched to bootlegging. Charles Lucky Luciano and Johnny Torrio, a former boss of the Chicago South Side gang, planned the conference, which took place at the Ritz-Carlton in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The two men talked about the structure of the mafia crime families and the future of organized crime while Luciano took note of Bugsy Siegel. On January 28, 1929, Siegel wed Esther Krakover, his childhood sweetheart. They had two daughters, Millicent and Barbara. The marriage, however, came to an end in 1946 because Siegel was rumored to have had numerous affairs. Luciano and Costello, who later rose to prominence as the heads of the Genovese crime family, were acquainted with Siegel and his business partner Lansky. The cast of La Marie's War allegedly came to an end when Siegel, Anastasia, Genovese, and Adonis allegedly carried out Joe Massaria's murder on Luciano's orders in April 1931. When Luciano hired assassins from the Bugs and Meyer mob to kill Salvatore Maranzano later that year, he cemented his control over the mafia and heralded the advent of contemporary organized crime. After Maranzano passed away, Luciano and Lansky established the National Crime Syndicate, a confederation of powerful crime families. They established the Commission, which divided mafia territories to stop further gang wars. One of the founding members of the hit squad, known as Murder Incorporated, which committed numerous murders, was Siegel. Buchalter and Anastasia eventually took charge of the organization, though, after Siegel and Lansky left in 1933. By providing information regarding Waxy Gordon's tax evasion, Siegel and Lansky assisted the IRS in apprehending the gangster, who engaged in illegal gambling and bootlegging. Gordon hired the Fabrizio brothers to assassinate Siegel and Lansky in retaliation. However, after the Fabrizios tried to kill him and Lansky, Siegel found them and killed them. Tony Fabrizio, who intended to write a memoir about Siegel's leadership of the National Murder Incorporated squad, was killed in 1932 by Siegel and two accomplices. Fabrizio was murdered at his home by Siegel, who first pretended to be detectives while checking into a hospital to establish an alibi. In 1935, Siegel killed rival loan sharks Louis Pretty Amberg and Joseph C. Amberg in order to help Luciano's business partnership with Dutch Schultz. Siegel's hospital alibi was called into question, making him a target for his adversaries. His friends warned him about the risk, so the East Coast mob sent him to California in the late 1930s. Prior to this, Siegel had made several trips to the West Coast with the aim of working with Jack Dragna, the head of the Los Angeles family, to create syndicate-approved gambling networks. As soon as he arrived in Los Angeles, Siegel hired Mickey Cohen, a gang leader, as his chief lieutenant. Dragna accepted a lower position after learning about Siegel's violent reputation and the backing he received from the Lansky and Luciano. Luciano sent Dragna a message while still in jail saying it would be in his best interest to cooperate. Using funds from the syndicate, Siegel quickly took over the Los Angeles numbers racket, established connections with the Chicago outfit's wire services, established a drug trade route from Mexico, and took control of it. Hollywood's elite liked Siegel, and he made friends with stars like Cary Grant, George Raft, Clark Gable, Jack L. Warner, and Louis B. Mayer. Young celebrities like Tony Curtis, Phil Silvers, and Frank Sinatra looked up to Siegel, who amassed real estate and hosted lavish events in his Beverly Hills mansion. By seizing control of local unions and inciting strikes, Siegel planned to pressure movie studios into paying him off so that the unions could resume their work. During his first year in Hollywood, Siegel borrowed more than $400,000 from well-known celebrities without paying them back, because he knew the studios would not ask him to return the money. Harry Big Greenie Greenberg was killed on November 22, 1939, outside his apartment by Siegel, Whitey Crackover, Frankie Carbo, and Albert Tannenbaum. Buchalter gave the order to kill Greenberg after he threatened to cooperate with the police. When Siegel was put on trial for the crime in September 1941, Tannenbaum pleaded guilty to the murder and confessed. Siegel was given preferential treatment while awaiting trial, including being allowed to have female visitors, reject prison food, and attend dental appointments. After 2 state witnesses passed away and he hired Jerry Giesler to represent him, no more witnesses came forward. Tannenbaum testified, but in 1942, Siegel was exonerated due to insufficient evidence. However, his reputation had already been damaged, and he was known as Bugsy in the media. On May 25, 1944, Siegel was detained for bookmaking. However, he was later found not guilty thanks to the testimony of Raft and Matt Gray. Through William Wilkerson's Flamingo Hotel, he saw a chance to expand his professional network and enhance his reputation. He had traveled to southern Nevada in the 1930s with Sidway to look into expanding operations and discover opportunities to provide unauthorized services to Boulder Dam construction crews. Before departing for Hollywood, Lansky gave Siegel control of the company, which he later transferred to Sidway. In order to take control of the Flamingo, Siegel decided to alter his agreement with the Wilkersons in May 1946. In order to draw visitors willing to wager small or large sums of money, he intended to offer the best food and alcohol, as well as the biggest performers at affordable prices. After receiving death threats, Wilkerson was compelled to sell his Flamingo stock. He then spent some time in hiding in Paris as the mob took control. Despite post-war shortages, Siegel, who was now in charge, insisted on the best buildings, which caused his expenses to rise and his checks to bounce. In Nevada and Arizona, problem with the company's wire services were resolved, but Siegel refused to report business in California. The mob bosses were understanding of him despite this because they valued him as a resource. Only a few celebrities were present when the Flamingo opened, and its facilities were not complete. The establishment shut down in January 1947 as a result of the gaming table's significant loss in the first 2 weeks of operation. After being given a second chance, Siegel worked hard to make the Flamingo a success, but the crime lords eventually got sick of him. On June 20th, 1947, Siegel was shot by an unknown assailant while reading the Los Angeles Times with his associate in his Beverly Hills home. As we wrap up the story of Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, we are left with a complicated legacy of a man who was both a ruthless criminal and a visionary entrepreneur. His influence on the growth of Las Vegas as a gambling and entertainment destination is undeniable, but so too is the violence and destruction he wrought in his pursuit of power. Despite his brutal end at the hands of an unknown assailant, Bugsy's story continues to captivate and fascinate us. It is a story of ambition, loyalty, and betrayal, of the rise and fall of a man who lived and died by the sword. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next one.